In this video, we are going to do a complete overview of the most important apps and features in Zoho One. That way you can understand what Zoho is capable of, and more importantly, you'll know how Zoho One is designed to be used. So we're going to start with a rapid fire overview of Zoho One's user flow to help you see the big picture of Zoho One right off the bat. Then we'll take the time to do a thorough overview of each core Zoho One application individually for those of you who are interested in the details. Now, I'm Drew Brockmake, an official Zoho partner in Zoho Consultant. I built Zoho over 100 times for 100 different organizations. I've managed over $1 million in client revenue, and I've trained over 862 people to use Zoho. So if you are a Zoholic, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you are looking to try Zoho for free, no credit card required, use the link in the description below and support the channel. All right, here's where we're going to do the rapid fire Zoho One overview to give you a general idea of the Zoho One big picture. Okay, so first off, if you don't know what Zoho One is, you really need to understand it before we dive into the overview. So Zoho One is a bundle offering of software offered by Zoho. It's their best offer to you. It's the most amount of applications for the least amount of cost. So most of my clients are using Zoho One. A lot of people start with like one application or another. Maybe they're on Zoho CRM Plus, which is another bundle offering, but then they end up on Zoho One eventually. You can see Zoho One includes 50 plus applications to help you run your business between sales, marketing, support, communication, collaboration, productivity, finance, operations, HR, business process, and legal. So if I flip through this, here's all the applications you get. It is quite honestly insane. I'm not going to go too in depth here because we're just about to go into each individual application to give you an understanding of the big picture. Also, just understand that all of these applications, or most of the applications in Zoho One, also are available through the Zoho One mobile application. So here are the mobile apps as well. There's not as many, but for most of the Zoho One applications, they have a Zoho mobile application, and I use these every single day to run my own business. All right, so if you want to get this, go to the link in the description below. I am a Zoho partner, so this supports the channel. If you go in there and you click, you don't even have to enter a credit card, which is crazy. You can just get in there, use the software, and see if it is what you need for your organization. So with that, if you want to try out Zoho One, that's how you can get it for free to see if it works for you and your organization. Okay, so let's dive into the overview here, the lightning rapid fire overview of Zoho. So the first thing you got to understand is the leads module inside of Zoho CRM. The reason I'm starting with Zoho CRM here is if you don't understand how to set up Zoho CRM correctly, you can't set up Zoho One correctly. Zoho CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, is the application where all of your data is going to be. It's going to be the source of truth. It's where you centralize all of your data. And then really all the other applications in Zoho support Zoho CRM. You could use them individually. That's not how you should use Zoho One. So with Zoho CRM in mind, you've got the leads and the deals module. The leads and deals effectively represent your customer's journey, the leads representing the unqualified side of the journey, deals representing the qualified side of the journey. So you have a screening process. Once they are qualified, you move them over to deals. Now, with that being said, you can see that I've laid out my process from left to right here. There's a lot of ways to generate leads. The most popular way to get a lead inside of Zoho CRM is actually just by having a web form, a contact me web form on your website. So you can see here I'm inside of Zoho Forms. Zoho gives you a form builder so that you can create a form, and then you can actually just easily integrate that with the CRM right from your website. So I'm using Calendly in this case, but I've used Zoho Forms. I just like the ability for people to book. Zoho's got Zoho Bookings, but they're still tweaking some things and still allows some double bookings. So that's why we're going over all the Zoho One apps that are up to snuff. But you put that form on your website. When people fill out the form, they end up as a lead. So you can see now we're instead of the lead Kanban view, we're inside of a lead record view. What's nice about this is you can have all the information that was filled out on the form just dumped right onto the lead record. The other thing that's really nice about this is you can configure a Zoho form to grab UTM parameters. So if you're familiar with marketing tracking and driving revenue, you can't really drive revenue unless you know what's driving revenue. And the only way to know what's driving revenue is to add UTM parameters to all of your call to actions. That way you can see what's actually producing closed won deals from all of your marketing activities. To go a little more in depth on that, I'm going to show you in just a moment an executive dashboard that utilizes the data that's captured from UTM parameters from a form. You don't have to worry about that stuff. It may not be relevant to you. For most organizations, it's pretty relevant. Okay, so for deals, I showed you the leads. Now you can see the deals. I've laid out my process from left to right. And you may be thinking to yourself, how did you do this? This is really organized. Well, the best way to prepare for building any system, especially a CRM, is to document it first. So you can see I've got this Journey Doc web tab. It actually hooks up to a Sheets document. And from here, I've laid out all my processes from left to right. And you can actually make a copy of this document in the description below this video for free. And it will give you everything you need to document your Zoho, your processes, so that you can get Zoho implemented in the best way possible right off the bat. It doesn't just include journey map. It includes a launch plan, a link to the video for more of a description, implementation strategy, a UTM builder so that you can build those UTM parameters I was showing you earlier, lead scoring document, marketing segmentation list, terms and definitions. It gives you the whole thing. The reason I'm showing you this is it's good to have documentation in a system. This is the best practice for using any system like Zoho, because inevitably people go into your system and they think to themselves, how am I supposed to use this thing? Okay, I see that the process is laid out, right, from left to right. We go back to the leads module. I can see that everything's laid out from left to right. But what does this mean? Like, what is a marketing ready lead versus a sales ready MQL versus working versus reached? Well, the answer to that is in the Journey Doc. So this is a shared document that anyone can access so that they can understand how to operate the system in the best way possible according to your best practices and operations. You got to mix both. A nice quote here that I think is really critical for everyone to understand about businesses and systems is from Michael E. Gerber. Organize around business functions, not people. Build systems within each business function. Let systems run the business and people run the systems. People come and go, but the system remains constant. You want to build a system that scales and a system that lasts. So that's what we're going to be showing you in this video. Okay, let's go to dashboard. So I talked about collecting UTM parameters, using a form, having your process outlined. Why do all of that? Well, other than the fact that it's much easier to use the system if you customize it and build it that way, from an end user perspective, on the back end, you get reports like this. So you can see your entire business process as a funnel. But more importantly, you can get a visualization like this. This is probably the most popular report that I create, and that it shows you the different lead sources in your organization and what lead sources. You can actually change this, by the way, to not just lead source, but UTM medium, what campaign. If you're hooked up to Google Ads, you can even do by keyword, what's producing closed won revenue. Now, some of you may understand the significance of this, and some of you may be a little confused as to the value here. What is so valuable about a report like this is so often when you're doing marketing activities, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall and just waiting to see what sticks, and you don't really know what's working. And so many marketing professionals are getting stopped at conversion data. So they're like, okay, well, I ran a Google ad campaign, ran a Facebook ad campaign, LinkedIn, whatever they did. And when the web form was filled out, they get a conversion saying that was good. This did its job. But just because someone filled out a form doesn't mean that they went all the way through your pipeline and became a closed won deal. Okay, I'm talking about Zoho One within like a B2B context. You can use Zoho One for e-commerce B2C, but I'm going to keep it B2B for now because most of my clients are B2B. So with that in mind, what you're able to do with this report is break down the lead source and then see what marketing activities have produced closed won revenue for the organization. This is just a dummy demo, just to kind of give you an idea of what this could do. But that is the idea of this report, to give you an understanding of what marketing activities are driving revenue so you can double down on what works, you can kill off what's not, and you can focus on what's most impactful for the organization. Okay, quick thing here. that report I just showed you is technically this report. It shows you from left to right how well your process is doing, and it shows you the different constraints in the organization so you can see different drop-off points and strategically improve your organization with data-driven decisions based on reports like this. Instead of just making up what you think would be fun to do in Zoho or in the organization, you can see there's obviously some drop-off here. This is one of the current constraints of the business. Let's focus on this and improve. You'd be so shocked. I built this for so many different organizations at what parts of their process really struggle. And we can point to it and say, that's obviously the current constraint of the organization. Here are different things we can do in Zoho to help you improve your operations. So that's how you want to operate as a business. You want to be data-driven. You want to have a dashboard so you can work on the business, not just in the business, and you can make better decisions to improve things. Okay, enough on that. We got Zoho Campaigns here as well. If you don't know what Zoho Campaigns is an email marketing platform. You can also do SMS. It's primarily used for campaigns. You can see I use this. This is my actual instance of Zoho Campaigns. Don't judge me. This is an email I just sent out or I was preparing. And yeah, this is how I format it. I just do, picture up top. I like to do a rally of all the Zoho news, everything that's impactful, shoot that out to my email list so that all of the people who have subscribed to me can understand what's new in the world of Zoho. This is really, really critical. So we're going to go way more in depth on this later in the video. Again, this is like a rapid fire overview. We're going to do a detailed overview of each application specifically. But as a quick thing, Zoho Campaigns is so powerful in that one of the major issues with marketing automation platforms and email marketing platforms is bringing in enough data so that you can create good segments. You want to avoid a cluster situation, which just means you have, first name, last name, email, and you have thousands of those. And you look at those three columns and you think to yourself, are these customers? Are these leads? Like I don't have any proper segmentation of this list. So what communications, what messages, what emails, what SMSs do I send to different parts of the list? Because I don't want to blast the whole thing. I don't know who's who. So if you want to know who is who, you need to make sure that you have data. You need to have their company. You need to have their last purchase date. You need to have all this information. That's where Zoho Campaigns really shines. If you're using Zoho CRM as a really tight integration, so you can bring over contact data, deal data, shockingly, and account data. So with all of that data, you can create the best possible segments so that you avoid the customer and you can send the right communications to the right people. So that's the power of Zoho Campaigns. All right. Next thing here we're going to go over is Zoho Sign. So Zoho Sign is a DocuSign equivalent. If you're familiar with DocuSign, you can see I'm inside of a deal here. So most of the time when you're doing business with another organization, at some point you're going to have to sign an agreement, and creating that document and getting it ready for signature can be a huge pain, especially when you're in siloed systems and you have to do integrations together. Zoho takes care of this for you with Zoho Sign and the Zoho CRM Zoho Sign integration. What's really nice about this is you can just click on Send with Zoho Sign, and then it will merge all the information. You can see here's some signature fields, and then you can just send off to the main point of contact for the deal, and you are good to go. You can also use mail merge. And if you're not familiar with mail merge, essentially you can, from mail merge, you can say, hey, I want to merge an NDA. It will open a new tab, will merge information from the deal onto a document. As you can see here, I'm not going to go too far into demonstration. This is more of an overview, but this is going to generate for us. If it will, you can steal my NDA document if you really want to. Let's just give this a moment. Okay, awesome. So this is loaded up. And you can see it's not quite yet merged the information because there is a button down here that's going to load in just a moment. And here you can actually run the merge. So you can see I've got different fields here, like account name. That's a merge field right here. And if I can run the merge, information will come over. Creating merge documents. Let's just give it a moment. Essentially merges the document. And then from here, now you can see Salt Marketplace, it's been merged over. Then I can go over to distribute and then upload to Sign Services, and I can send through Zoho Sign. You use Adobe Sign, DocuSign, Sign Easy, any of these other sign automation tools, you can also send through them as well. But if you're in Zoho, you're in Zoho One, you're already paying for Zoho Sign, why not use it? It's the whole idea. Okay. So you can send documents out for signature from Zoho with ease. That's the big idea with Zoho Sign. All right, let's talk about work drive. So the issue with Zoho One in particular, again, all of these applications, I'm trying to show you how they support the Zoho CRM. Zoho CRM is an application. Zoho One, you can use the different applications in Zoho One individually on their own as standalone applications. But I'm trying to show you how they all should be used in order to support customer journey in your operations in the organization. That's why I'm going over things like I am in this video. Okay, so the issue with Zoho CRM is it has its own storage engine as an application, but it doesn't give you very much data with its own storage engine. So it says, hey, for free, since you're paying for Zoho, you get X amount of data. People hit that data limit all the time. And it depends on how many users you have. That's how much data will be allotted to your account. So to expand the amount of data that you have, you use Zoho Work Drive. And Zoho Work Drive is like Google Drive, the other cloud storage application. And as a really nice integration with Zoho One, you can use Zoho Work Drive as a separate app and store all of your data. Then you have access to Zoho Writer, Zoho Sheets, and Zoho has a presentation application as well. So the nice thing about this is it expands the storage. You don't have to worry about purchasing additional storage if you don't want to. I use Google Drive in addition to this. Just so you know, I don't use the Zoho Productivity Suite. I really like Google's Productivity Suite. That's because there's certain things that I must have as a consultant. And that's why I'm married to the Google Productivity Suite or Google Workspace. But I'm showing you the main or core applications inside of Zoho One, so you know what to expect when setting this up. All right. Next thing here, Zoho Projects. So the nice thing about Zoho, you're not going to see this in many other business application suites or bundle offerings for software, is Zoho has project management tools. As Zoho Projects, as Zoho Sprints. Zoho Projects is for waterfall style project management, and then Zoho Sprints is for agile project management. So things are always changing, things aren't really set in stone. You usually go more agile. If you're planning a project and things need to be done precisely and there's not a ton of variation, there's always variation in projects, but you understand what I mean, then you have waterfall project management or Zoho Projects. So most people are using Zoho Projects versus Sprints. Sprints is more for like developers or marketing teams. But for Zoho Projects, you can integrate a project right within Zoho CRM on a deal record. So for example, you have a deal, you close that deal, right? You send it out for signature, and then you have your onboarding process. You want to kick off your onboarding process, cool. Now you have Zoho Projects. You go down the line, you can list all of the different tasks, you have the statuses, who's going to be doing what, and you are good to go. So the next thing that you might want to do once you close a deal inside of Zoho CRM, you can see we've gone through the customer journey from left to right here, from the lead over to a close one deal, kicking off a project, is you may want to kick off Zoho Desk. Now, Zoho Desk is a customer service platform. It allows you to create tickets for different issues that arise when your customers use your product or service, and it allows you to respond directly to them and have all of that communication in one place. So this is Zoho Desk for reference. And you can think of Zoho Desk as an email inbox that everyone on your team can use. So it's a shared email inbox. A lot of people like to take care of their customer support tickets within their email inbox, which is crazy. Not really if you have one person, but if you have multiple people and everyone's taking care of tickets from their own inbox, that's where things get unmanageable and you need a customer service solution. So these are systems that scale. If you're trying to run everything on a spreadsheet, you're going to run up into limitations very quickly. So this is a overview of Zoho One. I don't want to go too in depth on all of the nitty gritty features within these because we're just going to we're going over things right now as a high level to kind of paint the picture of what Zoho can do for your organization. And now we're going to go into detail on each of these applications individually. Zoho CRM is important because it helps you to centralize all of your data amongst many other benefits, brings all of your data in one place. So get off the spreadsheets, get into Zoho CRM. If it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. That's really the mantra of a CRM. All of your data needs to be in here. You can see all these different records. We want one central hub for all the data in the organization. Now, with that being said, it's not just for storing data. It's also for storing your processes. And that's what makes a CRM usable. Let me ask you this. If I go here and flip this to list view, what are you supposed to do with this information? Yes, You've got a task notification here with the next date. So it's the next task or activity and date so that you can follow up. But it's not very helpful to look at information in this way. That's why you flip things over to a Kanban view and you store your data in a Kanban view, or you store your processes in a Kanban view. That way your processes are a part of the system. You want, as an end user, even as an administrator, you want to be able to jump into the system and see from left to right what you're supposed to be doing with these various records. You want to see your data in relation to your processes. So it's one of the major things to review there. Next thing, let's talk Cadences Studio. So this is a newer feature. It's really interesting in that you can, it kind of goes off the back of storing your processes inside of Zoho CRM, in that when a lead comes into the business, there's a question. What do you do next? Do you send an email for day 1? And then day 3, do you send an SMS? And then day 5, do you send them a LinkedIn message? What do you actually do when a lead enters the organization? That's where you use Cadences Studio. To give you an idea, you essentially set up a follow-up sequence, and then you can do it automatically or manually, different leads, contacts to the cadence in order to follow up with them correctly. You can also do this for accounts if you're doing account-based marketing. If you don't know what that is, just means instead of leads coming in, you're doing outreach to a certain list of accounts to try to land logos. So you can do this for account-based marketing as well. All right, you also have Canvas view. So what's really interesting about Zoho CRM is you can pretty up all of the various records and you can make it look however you want. So really cool. You got these different templates you can go off of. Do I recommend you use Canvas view? No, but it's a really cool feature and you can try it out. Why don't I recommend it? Well, essentially, Canvas view makes your job harder. It makes your life harder. These templates look really amazing, but the reality of Canvas view is you try to implement it, it's uglier than the default, and you think it looks nice, but then you have to add, every time you add a field to the layout, you have to go into the Canvas view, drag it over, and you play UI UX designer, and it makes the administration burden of Zoho very heavy over time. So Canvas is cool, but don't use it. And if you do use it sparingly. Just wanted to show you it's an interesting feature. I think it can get there. I just don't think it's worth it right now. I really don't. Okay, so next thing here is, I showed you the leads module. Here's the deals module. So continued, you can see all of the records in relation to their various stages in the process. And the important thing to understand here is you need a document. I went over this earlier. I don't know if you've been jumping sections, but I want to make sure I cover this again. So if you haven't documented your processes, you need to do that before you develop the system. Why? Because if you try to develop the system first without a clear understanding of your processes, it's never going to be finished. So do this first. It's like a maquette. When sculptors make a big sculpture, they start with a maquette, a small sculpture. And basically, if they mess up on that one, they don't have to mess up on the big one. So they mess up, they make the small sculpture, and that gives much needed clarity with that small sculpture to build the big sculpture. You're doing the exact same thing here. It's better to mess up here on this document. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth. I don't want to give you epilepsy, or I don't want to trigger you. But when a sculptor is making a large sculpture, they use the maquette. When you're building a large system, you need to start here. This is your maquette, right? This is your safe space to mess up, to agree with other stakeholders. If you're a one-man band, awesome, just do it here. But make sure you get all of your all your processes documented on this template. That way you can build the system with ease. I mean, it might take a little more time to document things here and to put definitions and trigger points. You don't have to do trigger points, by the way. Just get stages and definitions down and then build your system around those stages and statuses. That way your process is in the system. And it's really like 20 birds, one stone, but 2 birds, one stone. And that other people in the organization can now access this document and know exactly how the system is supposed to move from left to right so that you don't have to play trainer of Zoho all the time. People can have a self-serve document to understand how the system works and how they should be using it. So very important to get the documentation piece down. Everyone skips this. If you do this, you're ahead of 99% of Zoho users. Okay, next thing here. Let's talk about the dashboard that you can build. So this is actually built inside of Zoho Analytics. You can see powered by Zoho Analytics at the bottom right here. But the idea is that and this is a sneak peek, we're going to go into Zoho Analytics more in depth, but the idea is that once you centralize all of your data, you can build the reports that you want, giving you the information you need to make the best decisions possible. It's all about decision making, right? If you don't have your data in one place, you can't make reports. And if you can't make reports and accurately understand what's happening in the organization, how are you supposed to make decisions? And how are you supposed to make impactful choices that will improve the organization? You can't. So if you want to be making the best decisions possible for the organization and actually making a difference for what's happening in the organization, you need to be able to see what's going on, and you need to be able to present information in a way that makes sense. That's where Zoho Analytics comes into play. Again, here's this popular report that I built out for quite a few people, quite a few different organizations, to help them see what of their marketing efforts is translating into closed won revenue for the organization. Also, I built this for other organizations. I built this for someone who's running for Senate in the US. And this shows their voter journey from left to right, so they can see what of their campaign efforts is translating into committed voters. I've also done this for B2C. So it's not just for B2B. Anytime you're trying to see how a process is going and seeing where the constraints of the business are so that you can make better decisions to improve the business, you need reports like this. It helps you to stay organized and to make the best decisions possible. Let's slide forward here to activities. Another thing that you can do inside of Zoho that's really nice, kind of teased this earlier when I was showing you the list view of the leads, is you can create different activities. So I can go here and I can add different tasks, meetings, calls. So I'm not going to leave it up to the imagination for my users on what they should do next. I'm going to start broad and then go deep. So I'm going to start broad with all the stages and statuses of my journey. And I'm going to go deep. By the way, when you saw that template, you can just rip off that template and use all the stages and statuses and then tweak them as needed. Don't feel like you have to start from scratch. That's why there's a template. There's a link in the description below. You can make a copy and go for it, and you can customize that. Now, the nice thing about this is once you have your broad set of statuses and stages, you want to go deep and tell a user what they should be doing next. So you don't want a status and stage for every step in the process. You want a status and stage for every status and stage in the process, 4 to 7 per process. And then you want to go deep with task, meeting, call. So you can say, hey, we're going to pre-populate a list of tasks for you. You can also use Cadence Studios to do that, right? The follow-up cadence. You can schedule meetings and calls. Cool thing about this as well is you can set reminders. There's different tasks. We'll notify them via email. You can also use pop-up, both. You can even use Click, which is like Slack. It's Zoho's equivalent for internal communication. You can't do it right here from this builder, but you can do it if you have Zoho One. Next thing we're going to go over is signals. So Zoho can help you keep a pulse on everything that's going on in the organization. You say, hey, email insights, open, click, bounce. These are all the things that I want to understand that are happening in the organization or for me. And then you can see it in this bell. If you click on the bell, you can see all the signals that are coming in. So you can keep yourself notified on all the different applications in Zoho. You can see everything that's going on. You can see there's not just Zoho CRM signals here. There's Zoho signals across Zoho One. This is really helpful. Just allows you to stay up to date on important information or important updates throughout the organization. All right, extensions. Another nice thing about Zoho CRM is there are many extensions where third-party software vendors and Zoho themselves have a few extensions that are really good. They make extensions to enhance the capabilities of Zoho and tie in with other applications. So there's a whole extension library marketplace where you can install additional functionality and enhance your Zoho CRM experience. Okay, another key feature here that's important to understand is the integration with your email. So if you're a Zoho user, unfortunately, as an administrator, you can't do this for everyone. Everyone individually, once they get in Zoho, they go to the email section, which I'm showing you now, and they can integrate with Gmail, whatever email provider they're using, and it will populate all the records in the system with emails that they've sent. So once you set up the IMAP integration, all records with an email, if you sent emails back and forth, it will populate unless you designate. Otherwise, you can set this up so that you can block certain domains. So if you don't want to see internal communication, you can block that. But the key thing to understand here is you set up the IMAP integration, Zoho populates all of the emails in the record for you. So if you were to go into a lead record, and let's say Adrian Henderson and I had a bunch of correspondence during the lead journey, I could go, and let's say I'm a manager too, and I'm like, hey, I want to see if Drew's been working on Adrian Henderson as a lead. I can just jump into the record, and then I can go to emails and see what's been happening. So really nice to be able to do that. All right. So next thing here is Google integrations. So if you have Google or Microsoft, you are in luck. There's quite a bit you can do here. So you can connect with your contacts, you can connect to the calendar, Google Ads, which we're going to go over in just a second, Chrome extension for Gmail. This is really helpful. I have that. Google Chat. Again, I use Google, so it's really nice for me. Office 365. If you're in Microsoft, you also have a lot of this same capabilities you would have if you had Google, as far as integrations are concerned, with integrating with meetings, contacts, tasks. Having the Zoho CRM add-in for Microsoft Outlook, you'll want that. And then you have a Word integration there too. Google Ads integration. If you're a marketer, if you're running Google Ads, you want to make sure that Google Ads is learning from your CRM what ads have produced closed won deals, converted leads. And this teaches Google Ads and it makes Google Ads smarter so that they send your ads or push your ads to people who are likely to convert, who are likely to become pipeline ready, who are likely to become closed won deals. So the only way that Google can truly understand that is if you have an integration. If you are telling Google, hey, this click that happened turned into a deal. So keep sending ads to people like that. When we run ads, send it to people like that. When you're doing marketing, the most expensive customer acquisition cost is up front. And as you learn what's working, you double down on what's working and your cost per acquisition goes down. So in order to do that properly, you need to have this Google Ads integration set up. Maybe you're not doing Google Ads and that's not relevant, but you get the idea there. Okay, next thing, related information from one place. So this is what's really helpful about Zoho is you can just jump into a record and you see all this information. It's overwhelming at first. You're going to get used to it, but you don't just see the information on the record. You see all of the related information on the record. So from here, everywhere else in Zoho that Adrian Henderson is, you can view the project that's being worked on. You can view his work drive information, Zoho Des, Zoho Survey, the invited meetings, attachments, cadences, campaigns, lead status history, SalesIQ visitor data, emails, and much more. You can see all of that information in one place. I'm a doom scroller. We're all used to doom scrolling. You know what that is. It's when you just scroll forever and ever and ever. I don't like the tabular format. Other systems have that. I like to be able to see all the data in one place. So that's what's so helpful about Zoho is once you get all of your data tied together, you jump into a record, you can see all the relevant information from one record. Finally, key thing to understand about Zoho CRM, it has a mobile application. I use this mobile application every single day when I get a lead, check the information there. If I want to go more in depth, I'll hop onto my desktop or my laptop and go more in depth on the information. But Zoho CRM is a very powerful application. You're going to want to check this out if you are using Zoho CRM. All right, here is the main problem with reporting inside of Zoho One. You have 50 different applications, and most of those applications have in-app report builders. And so as you continue to use the different Zoho One applications, you get more and more siloed reporting, which means you have to jump from app to app in order to view all the reports that you need to. And it's totally a first world problem, but the solve for that is to use a tool like Zoho Analytics. And so what Zoho Analytics allows you to do is bring all of your data together in a meaningful way. That way you can create reports from one place. So instead of going from app to app to app, creating reports and dashboards in different applications, and then having 10 different dashboards that you have to go over, you just combine all those reports into one dashboard in Zoho Analytics. So let's go over how this all works. So first and foremost, let's start with the end in mind. This is what you're looking to create is an executive dashboard. Maybe you're a manager, but the idea here is that you can see what you need in one place as far as reporting is concerned. To give you another visualization of this, I kind of went over this a little earlier. Here are another set of reports that you can check out to give you inspiration on reports that you may want for your organization. And so you can see I've got different tabular reports, different visual reports. They help these different reports help you see the organization and the business in different ways that are meaningful. So the idea is that you're able to bring all of your data together via different data sources. And Zoho Analytics is interesting in that it works from the bottom up, both in terms, like literally in terms of getting data into the system, but also just its UI and UX. So you can see here data sources, this at the bottom. You start with bringing in data from different places. That can be from your actual device that you use. That can also be from various applications you use in the organization. These are just the applications that Zoho has pre-built connectors to grab data from on a routine basis. So you can see they've even got competitors on here. Most of the Zoho applications are on here as well. And once you have data in, you'll have different data tables that are available to you from different applications. Now, from there, you'll have reports. So typically people don't want to view data in its raw format. That's not the most helpful way to visualize data, make decisions based on data. And so that you've got reports in this section. And reporting allows you to visualize the data in a way that makes sense in the most helpful way possible. Maybe you want to see trends over time. Maybe you want to see conversion rates. You want to see, hey, how many subscribers turned into pipeline ready deals this last month or in this quarter? And we can see, okay, it's 51% of our subscriber raw leads ended up becoming qualified pipeline ready deals. This information is helpful. You can also just visualize from left to right your processes so that you can see the main constraints of the organization. For example, here you would even be able to say, hey, like in Washington, we have the most amount of closed won deals as an example. And so you can double down on what's working in the organization and you can kill off efforts that are not producing results. So this just is to give you an idea of the different reports that you can build. And then once you build the various reports that you need, put them into a dashboard so you can see it all in one place. Now, here's another thing that's really interesting is, and I didn't understand this for a long time. So before I learned about SQL, I would use a tool called Supermetrics back when I was doing marketing for various clients. What we do is we'd use Supermetrics to grab data from Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, whatever we'd be doing for advertising. And we'd have separate tables or spreadsheets that Supermetrics was pulling data from. And then what we would end up doing is we would use, it was called Google Data Studio at the time. Now I think it's called like Looker Studio or something. It's still a Google product. But then we would take the data from Supermetrics, build a dashboard based on that data. The issue with that is I wasn't able to take the tables from different applications and basically mush them together side to side. And in SQL, that's called a join. So you join tables from left to right. And then in SQL, you stack tables on top of each other using unions. And you may think to yourself, why on earth are you describing this? Who cares? But this makes your ability to report, it gives you the most robust capabilities when you're reporting. So the more advanced your reporting needs to get, the more you're going to need SQL. And so the whole idea that I'm trying to get across here with Zoho Analytics is more likely than not, you're going to grow out of the other applications reporting capabilities because they're not business intelligence tools. They're not just made to report. They're applications that handle other functions and they have reporting capabilities. So what you want to do is get familiar with Zoho Analytics, learn how to bring data into the software and build the reports that you need because you're probably going to end up there at the end of the day. So Zoho Analytics is a very powerful tool within Zoho One, and that's the overview for Zoho Analytics. All right, so let's do a overview of Zoho Campaigns. Now, Zoho Campaigns, the question that I get most often is why use Zoho Campaigns when you got Zoho CRM and email capabilities inside of Zoho CRM? Because as you know, Zoho Campaigns is an email marketing platform. So the idea is that you can send mass emails. And that's the reason that you use Zoho Campaigns over Zoho CRM, because Zoho CRM has caps. In Zoho CRM, email communication is intended to be transactional, or in other words, it was originally intended for sales transactional emails, not mass email blasts. So Zoho CRM is going to have certain limitations. For example, Zoho CRM has you can only send in a batch of 100 emails per user per blast, like email blast, and then you can only do up to like 1,000 a day. It's somewhere in that vicinity as far as limitation. So if you're looking to do more than 100 email batches at a time, or batches of 100 emails at a time, and over 1,000 a day, or if you just want to do a newsletter and you've got over 1,000 people in it, then it's not going to be reasonable for you to use a tool like Zoho CRM for email communication. And that's why you would want to use something like Zoho Campaigns. So if you're doing a newsletter, mass email communication, or marketing email communication, you need to use Zoho Campaigns. So as you can see here, I've got an email. This is the main idea, is that you can send email blasts. We're going to get into more of the details here, but that's the main thing. Most people are just sending newsletters. They can do more advanced things like send out drips, which we'll get to in a moment. But where I would say Zoho Campaign shines in comparison to things like MailChimp and MailJet and other tools is the integration with Zoho CRM. And Zoho One is almost a misnomer in that it leads you to believe that the databases are automatically connected across the different applications as what's called Zoho One, all-in-one solution. Makes you think, okay, all these applications must be sharing the same database. That's not true. And unfortunately, you still got to set up syncs and integrations individually for each application to other applications. So not just between Campaigns and Zoho CRM. You can see here, if I wanted to integrate Bigin, Zoho Recruit, these things don't integrate automatically. You have to go and integrate them. So it's kind of a hassle, but this is where it shines in that you can get information from Zoho CRM into Zoho Campaigns that otherwise would be extremely difficult. To be more specific, if you're using a tool like MailChimp, doing an integration and getting all the different fields from Zoho would be much more difficult. And then you'd have to get your accounts data in there. And if you wanted to build more advanced segments, then you'd have to get accounts data manually, deals data manually. It would just be a huge pain. So it makes this process really easy. If you have an email marketing tool, it's all for nothing if you just have the first name, last name, and email. You want the data syncing automatically so that you can set it and forget it. Also, you want as much information as makes sense in your email marketing platform so that you can build appropriate segments. You want to avoid customer situation where you're seeing first name, last name, email, wondering to yourself, are these leads? Are these customers? Are these accounts we're trying to reach out to? Are they already engaged with the sales team? You want the best possible understanding of your list of contacts or leads. And the way that you get a better understanding of those things is through these fields that you bring over into Zoho Campaigns. So that's where Zoho Campaigns shines, is the sync with Zoho CRM. Here's a couple segments. The nice thing about this as well is with that data that you're getting from the sync, you can create the best possible segments for your drip campaigns or your email marketing blast. Those are just called campaigns within Zoho Campaigns. An email blast is called a campaign. So here you can see that based on the different data that's in the system that came over from the sync, I can build different segments based on that criteria. From there, you've got different templates that Zoho has pre-designed for you, so you don't have to design them from scratch, which is really, really nice. They've got some good templates here that you can just check out and hit the ground running, as opposed to going into Canva or jumping into Canvas, messing around, trying to build something, then bring it back into here. You can just do it from Zoho Campaigns. Take advantage of their pre-designed templates and get moving from there. All right. Finally, this is really like the most advanced thing that you can do here inside of Zoho Campaigns is you can build workflows. They're also known as drips or nurture series. And the idea with these is you can send multiple emails over time automatically. And this is really marketing in your sleep. This is like the beauty of automation and tools like Zoho Campaigns is you can say, hey, if I have, for example, in my process, a lead comes in the door via a web form fill, and I want a routine keep in contact with them, and I can schedule 10 different emails to go out to the new lead that came in the door over the next couple months. If I can do that automatically for every lead coming in the door, I can just set it, the cadence of X amount of emails, and then forget it. And then you can market in your sleep in the best way possible. And then in addition, so that's proactive, right? Being proactive with marketing communication is building a drip series or nurture series or workflow, whatever you want to call it. Being reactive would be every single month reacting to the news that happened over the month and doing a newsletter. So you want to be both reactive and proactive with your marketing efforts. And that's what Zoho Campaigns allows you to do here. Now, one other quick note, you don't just have to limit yourself inside of Zoho Campaigns to sending emails. You can also do SMS blast from here as well. But I will say most of the time people are just doing in Zoho Campaigns, they're mostly using email, but you can do SMS blast for campaigns and SMS nurture series for workflows. So keep that in mind as well. Another thing that's important to understand is if you are going to use Zoho Campaigns, you need to make sure that you get your SPF and DKIM records verified. So if you're going to set this up, just something to keep in mind, make sure you have access to your DNS, whether it's Bluehost, GoDaddy, whatever you're using. Make sure you have access to that so that you can add the proper DNS records. DNS just stands for domain name services. It allows you to verify that you own the domain that you say you own. That way Zoho improves your deliverability rate. So with that, that's Zoho Campaigns and a quick overview of how it works. All right, you've got to love that Zoho offers Zoho Books. You don't have to pay for QuickBooks or another bookkeeping software. You can just use Zoho. And what's really nice about it is, first off, you can integrate as a tight integration with Zoho CRM. That's really going to be where most of these applications shine. But it's nice because getting your items and having that sync up with your CRM database, because you're going to be sending over like quotes from the CRM, it's just nice to be able to do that and have it sync to Zoho Books. So you don't have to have two siloed databases. The nice thing about having your items in is you can actually pull them into various records, such as a sales order. Now, it's really important to have a good understanding of the different records that are involved inside of Zoho Books. So you have a quote. When you're in sales, you send over a quote. And you have to use all these records. This is like at max how you use the different records properly inside of Zoho. But you can choose the records that are pertinent to your situation or relevant to what you're selling, because maybe you're doing B2C and sales orders are going to kind of, they're going to work a bit differently. But for B2B, you got a quote. Someone gives you the thumbs up and says, perfect, that's what we want. Send us an invoice. Well, you take that quote and you would push it over as a sales order. And a sales order has two commitments or records it splits into. So if you're selling physical goods, a sales order becomes, you have the financial obligation and the delivery of what you promised. So let's say you're selling breadboards. I work with an organization that sells breadboards. Part of the sales order would be an invoice that you would send. And the sales order acts as a master record. So within a sales order, you can convert a sales order into invoices. You can convert it into invoices. That way you can do multiple payment installments. So you have the sales order. Let's say you do, hey, pay half upfront, half later. Those are your payment terms. So that's the financial obligation for the sales order. Now the fulfillment obligation would be something like the purchase order. Let's say you don't have the goods on hand after you sell something. Well, you would, from the sales order, you would convert the sales order to a purchase order in order to procure or get the goods that you just promised your customer when you sold them something. So it goes, quote, sales order, from a sales order becomes an invoice or a purchase order. And then you have your whole purchase ordering process for procurement. And then you collect the payment inside of Zoho Books. You actually, you would just go to email the invoice itself. You can see here's an invoice, and then you can actually collect payments. Someone can click on the link and they can pay for the invoice all through Zoho Books. So that's what's really nice about Zoho Books. You've got the tight integration with Zoho. So you're getting vendors, items, contacts, accounts, all that is being brought into Zoho Books for you automatically on a routine basis. You set it and forget it. You can create all the necessary financial records in order to have proper bookkeeping inside of Zoho One. Zoho Projects is an extremely robust project management tool for waterfall style project management. If you're doing agile, you can look into Zoho Sprint, but most people who are using Zoho to manage their team's workload, they're using Zoho Projects. So one of the cool things about Zoho Projects is the integration with Zoho CRM. From Zoho CRM, you can see all of the associated Zoho CRM records, projects. You can create new projects, associate to existing projects within Zoho Projects from Zoho CRM. And you can see the general project completion, the milestones, tasks, issues, etc. You can see the project status. You can see quite a bit here. And then you can actually click right into the project from desk, and you can see, or in Zoho CRM, not desk. From Zoho CRM, you can click directly into the project and check out its progress. Now, once you actually jump into Zoho Projects, you've got something really critical to understand, which is the hierarchy of records. So you can think of it as like a Russian doll set where it's like you open one layer and there's like 50 other layers and there's like a doll within a doll within a doll within a doll. Something similar with the setup with Zoho Projects. So on the outermost layer, you've got project groups. As you could probably tell, it's kind of self-explanatory. It groups various projects together. So if you have a set of projects that are related, you use Zoho groups to tie those different projects together. And then within project groups, you have different projects. And a project can be for a client. If you are providing client services like I do for mine, I actually just have one project per client. But if you're using Zoho Projects internally, maybe you'd have a project where you're implementing a CRM or Zoho One. That would be a project. Or maybe you are implementing a website, developing a website. That would be another project. So you can, maybe you are developing a new product. That would be another project. So you have project groups, projects within projects. You start to see down the rabbit hole. You don't have to use all of these, by the way. You can just use projects and tasks and get away with it. But this is really important to understand. So you have project groups, projects, then milestones. So you can break up a project into a couple milestones to see the general completion over time. Within milestones, you have task lists, which is just a way to group the various action items. An action item is a task. It's a way to group the various action items that you have in the project. And then within a task, you can have various subtasks. And so that's really how far down the rabbit hole goes. It's the hierarchies. You have project groups, projects, milestones, task lists, tasks, and subtasks. So that makes up the hierarchy of Zoho projects. Within a project, again, you can just get away with using the project and the tasks objects. You don't have to use everything else. The more projects and tasks within your project that you use, the more you're going to rely on task lists, subtasks, and milestones to organize things. But generally, you can get away without using many milestones or task lists if you don't need to. It's just more to keep things organized over time. Okay, so let's talk about what you're able to do inside of a project. So here is a dummy project so that you can see kind of how this works. So you've got a dashboard that helps you to see all the information across the board in the project in one place. You've got tasks, which are the different individual action items, who owns them, their status. You can add a bunch of different fields here. Then you've got reports. You have limited reporting capabilities within Zoho Projects. I'm not really impressed with the reports that it creates here, but you can take a look at these. You got a couple of options when it comes to different reports you can build inside of Zoho Projects. Then you have documentation. So oftentimes when you're working on a project, you're tossing lots of documents around. You can do top level documents for the project itself. And you can also add documents to specific tasks or action items that you're working on so you can make them more specific. So when people are working on a specific task, they have the documentation that's relevant to that task within the record. From there, you've got milestones. Again, it goes project group, projects, milestones. So if you wanted to break up a milestone for a CRM implementation, you could do documentation as a milestone. Then you could do customization as a milestone. You could do requirements gathering as a milestone to break up the project even more. And then from there, you've got timesheets. So you can actually keep track of all the time that you are spending in a project. So let's say, for example, you didn't bill at a fixed rate, you billed by the hour. You could actually record all the time spent on a task, and then you can mark it as billable or non-billable right within Zoho Projects. And then from there, this is a perfect tie into the next tab here. You can actually bill it through Zoho Books using the Finance tab. That's the power of Zoho Projects in the Zoho ecosystem, is that you can build that. So you have the integration between Zoho CRM, Zoho Projects, and then Zoho Books. You do the same with expenses. And then you have different issues that you can create as well. If you're familiar with Jira, you can create those different issues, get them resolved. And then you have users. So two camps of users. You have your internal users, and then you have external users. So again, if you're a marketing agency, an agency in general, if you are a consultancy, if you're working with your clients on projects and it's a collaborative effort, you have internal clients for your internal users, then external clients, and you get a certain number of external user licenses that you can use. or offer your clients so that they can get in the system and they will have access via a portal to Zoho Projects to access the information that they need, which is really helpful. I use that every single day with my clients so they have complete transparency on what's happening inside of the project. They're not able to edit everything, but they're able to see everything so that they can be informed on how the project's progress is going at any time in real time. So that's what you can do at the project level within Zoho Projects. Let's talk about the task. So for specific tasks, we're looking at the task view now. You can store information that's relevant to the task and add custom fields. And you have these out of the box fields. You can also add subtasks underneath the task itself. And then you can log hours specific to the task, not just the project. You have documentation, invoicing capabilities, dependencies. If you're not familiar with dependencies, essentially what you're doing in Zoho Projects is you can say, hey, if this hasn't been completed, then I'm not able to complete this task that you're seeing right now, or vice versa. It will either be a predecessor task dependency or successor task. So that's what you're able to do in Zoho Projects. You can get pretty advanced with project management, status timeline, issues, activity stream, Google Calendar. You have all these other integrations here that you can use as well in order to effectively understand what needs to get done. You also have this description. So you can add a description. You have a rich text editor here, and then you can expand it if you want to really be able to see this more like a Word document or like a Google Doc, as opposed to seeing it in a small text box here. So that is it for Zoho Projects as far as what you're able to accomplish with it and its various capabilities. Zoho SalesIQ really has two main components. So on one side, you're able to track visitors, and then on the other side, you're able to create chatbots. So let's dive into how this all works. So first and foremost, it starts with a piece of code that you embed on your site. So right before the closing body tag, you install this code. Once you've done that, you personalize your chatbot if you want to use the chatbot. Now, you may not want to use the chatbot. You may just want to do visitor tracking, which you can totally get away with. That's totally fine. That's actually how I use it. I don't use the chatbot. But if you want to use the chatbot, you need to personalize it. You enter the different questions that are necessary for your chatbot. And then as people interact with the chatbot, it actually enters into Zoho SalesIQ, and then your various agents can go into the chat and they can actually have a conversation back and forth right from Zoho SalesIQ. So that's the gist of using the out-of-box chatbot. Now you also have a more advanced option called a Zobot, and you can try to, I've seen people try to use the Zobot, and oftentimes it just gets so complex. They start to develop it, they realize it's complex, and then they give up. But essentially, a Zobot is a much more robust and structured way of building a chatbot to try to send them in different directions. To kind of give you an idea of what this looks like too, is a Zobot. If we jump in here and show you some of the bot builder, you can essentially go in here and you have different options to create different elements. And from here, you can see you have different response cards, input cards. There's quite a bit that you can do with a Zobot. This is much more robust. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you can see you can even have a ChatGPT AI card. There's a lot that you can do with the Zobot. Zobot is like the Canvas feature inside of Zoho CRM. It looks really shiny and cool, but when you get into the weeds, it's just a huge administrative burden. And so if you need to automate everything, awesome, go here and use the Zobot. Oftentimes the out-of-box chatbot is going to work just fine for 99% of organizations. Okay, so that's the chatbot side of Zoho SalesIQ. Let's talk about visitor tracking. Zoho SalesIQ has incredible visitor tracking. It also gives you the IP address for your visitors so that you can see what you can do is you can actually bring visitor data into Zoho CRM, and then every time someone fills out a lead, you can go to their Zoho CRM record and you can see all their different visitor sessions. And that's creepy, but what it helps you to do is see, okay, this is a marketing qualified lead, or in other words, it's sales ready. Now I can look at this lead, and if they've viewed product XYZ page, I know what they're interested in, right? I know if they're a hot lead, if they've been on the site for over 4 hours, and if they're a colder lead, if they've been on for 4 minutes. So it just helps you gauge how interested a prospective customer possibly is in the organization. So that's one thing that's kind of nice here is you get the IP address, and whereas other website tracker or website analytics such as Google Analytics are starting to make the IP address not available, or they're hiding some of this data, Zoho Analytics gives you a ton of data, especially within for SalesIQ. You get all that data inside of Zoho Analytics, and you can do a lot with it in Zoho Analytics. That's something to keep in mind there. You also have the inbuilt reporting inside of Zoho SalesIQ. So if you just want to rely on the reports here, you can see on month by month how many visits you're getting, average visit duration. You can see total page views on a certain basis, whatever you want to see. So this just gives you quite a bit to look at, and gives you all the different metrics that you'd want at a glance. But again, as you start to use the system more and more, you might realize, hey, this is not going to cut it for reporting needs, and we need to graduate to something more robust, such as Zoho Analytics. But with that, those are the two main components of Zoho SalesIQ. You have on one hand the ability to track visitors, and then on the other hand, you have the ability to create chatbots and place them on your website. Zoho Flow is one of those applications in Zoho One that is a total hidden gem. And when people find out about it, I think they're kind of shocked that it even exists in Zoho One. But Zoho Flow is essentially Zapier for Zoho. So if you're not familiar with Zapier, it's an integration automation platform. So the nice thing is when you're doing an integration, it's very difficult to do the authentication. And tools like Zoho Flow and Zapier, what they do is they have all these various applications that they have done the hard part for authentication. All you have to do is sign in from Zoho Flow into these different applications if you want to integrate with them. And look how many applications you can integrate and automate with Zoho Flow. It is absolutely insane how much you can do here. So if you're looking to do an integration and you're on Zoho One, you already are paying for Zoho Flow. Why not use it? It's cheaper than Zapier. It's just as robust and it can do quite a bit. So go ahead and check that out. There's literally hundreds of applications here that you can integrate and automate with. There's also some featured flows. So this is the gallery. It shows on the left-hand side, the different applications that are available for integration automation. On the right-hand side, different featured flows, which apparently are commonly used flows within Zoho Flow that you can just click on, use this flow, and you can start to build it right from this panel, which is interesting. So you can also go to create your own flow. When you do that, you have different triggers. And I think it's important to take a step back here. So every time you do an automation, there's three core components you need to worry about. One is optional. So the first one is a trigger that's not optional. You have to decide when is this automation or integration going to occur. So generally within a trigger, you have two different options. You can do a time-based trigger, or you can trigger based on an event. So when we look at something like this, choose what triggers the flow. We have application-based trigger, those are events. Schedule, that's a time-based trigger. Webhook, that's another event. And then you've got URL, email, RSS. So these are various triggers that you can use. Most people are going to stay within the realm of like an app or a schedule or a webhook. I don't see pulling a URL, email, and RSS as a common triggers when using Zoho Flow. And those are new. Used to just be like app, schedule, and webhook, I believe. So with that, you have the trigger. Next component that's you need to worry about is the condition. So when is something going to happen? Well, let's look at the different apps. Well, in Act 365, let me give you an example of an application I actually use here. Okay, so choose Calendly trigger. When an event is canceled by invitee or event is scheduled by invitee, that's your trigger. Then you can decide in the actual flow itself if you want to do a trigger like a decision, a delay. You can say, we only want this to run on certain events or if certain criteria is met on a record. That's a condition. It's optional. You can actually just do a blanket trigger and say, every time an event is created, I want to do this. But you can also say, on certain events being created in Calendly, then I want to do an action. That brings us to our third option is actions, or our third component, which is actions. So you got trigger, condition, action. Every single workflow that you're ever going to build will follow that pattern. It won't be that simple. Sometimes you'll have super complex automations, but generally they follow that flow. Then you got the trigger, which is, hey, these are the different applications we can trigger actions inside of. What do we actually want to do now that we've triggered an automation? So let's say that because we had a Calendly event created, we wanted to create it in Zoho CRM. I'd search for Zoho CRM here, and I'd go down and I'd say, okay, let's do create module entry. And then from here, we could go in and choose an event or a meeting. Then we could create a meeting. So that's what you can do with Zoho Flow, is you can integrate with various applications, create triggers, bring in data from those various applications, create conditions so that it just doesn't run every single time the event happens. It runs specifically when you need it to. And then you can create different actions so that you can automate certain mundane things in the organization. Maybe when an event is created in one system, you want to create it in your system so you don't have siloed databases. The use cases for Zoho Flow are virtually endless. It is such a powerful tool. I do recommend kind of the reverse of what I do for reporting when it comes to Zoho Flow. So if you can use the in-application workflow builder for whatever application you're building automations in, and if you can't build the automation that you want in the application you're using, then use Zoho Flow as opposed to reporting. I do recommend eventually you just move over to Zoho Analytics and build your reports there because most people are going to migrate there anyways. I recommend the reverse for Zoho Flow because the in-application workflow builders are typically just as robust. They're going to allow you even more triggers, and typically they're going to allow you even more actions and criteria ability or condition ability capabilities for the automation. So in other words, use the in-application workflow builders and automation builders when you can. If you can't, then use Zoho Flow. And for integrations, Zoho Flow is a great place to build those integrations. That way you don't have to do it from the ground up and use middleware. Just use Zoho Flow. It's going to do 99% of what you need it to do as far as integrations and automations are concerned. Last thing here I want to mention with Zoho Flow, you can get pretty advanced on the actions, or in other words, the last component of an automation is when, the trigger, condition, action, what you actually want it to do, you can hard code into the system. So this gives you the most amount of flexibility to manipulate the data, put the data where you want, or do what you need with the system for the action for automation. So to recap, with Zoho Flow, you have lots of different applications you can integrate with and then automate. You have a lot of capabilities as far as how you're going to trigger those automations. You have a huge arsenal of logic and actions for those different applications as well. So you can determine when you actually want to trigger an action, how you want to trigger the action, and then what you actually want to do with the automation. If you want to use these pre-built blocks of actions here, you can do that. Within Zoho, you have all of these pre-built block actions. Or if you want to hard code the action, Deluge or JavaScript, you're going to pick up Deluge very quickly. If you know JavaScript, then you can use Deluge as well. So that is Zoho Flow, and it is one of the core applications inside of Zoho One. Now, a lot of the applications inside of Zoho One allow you to build forms, but none of their in-app form builders beats Zoho Forms. So you'll definitely want to use Zoho Forms if you're inside of Zoho One to collect information. You can see I use Zoho Forms on my website to collect submissions for Z training. So I offer a lot of my training for free, and the most structured training program that I have right now is Z training. It's power user training for Zoho. And if you fill out this form, you get access to the training for free. So I use Zoho Forms to do this. And inside of Zoho Forms, one of the most critical things to understand about it is you have this builder, and you have all these basic fields you can add to a form and all these advanced fields. You can do quite a bit with the form builder. To give you an idea of the advanced capabilities, you can integrate with Zoho CRM form fields. You can add a subform, which allows you to add multiple rows of information to a form, image choices, terms and conditions, signatures, payment fields, you name it. Most likely Zoho Forms has it for you. One of the other interesting things that you can do with Zoho Forms is you can add multiple pages, so it doesn't just have to be one page. You have two options when you build forms inside of Zoho Forms. You have the standard, which is what I was just showing, and then you have the card. And the card format is a new format, and I think they absolutely nailed the capabilities here. So I'm going to reload the page here and show you what it can do. So essentially, the card format has one question per page. And it just breaks down the form so it doesn't look like there's 50 different form fields. They just take it one step at a time. So as you can see here, there is a progress bar at the top. You can actually embed this as well. We're going to talk about embedding forms in just a moment. You can see here, if I fill it out, Drew Brockbank, press enter, the progress bar moves to the right, and then it just displays the next page for me. Enter your work email address. So I like this because I think it just provides a better user experience, but that's something you can also do in Zoho Forms that I really, really like. Now, you also have the ability in Zoho Forms to embed the forms on your website using a piece of JavaScript code. You have different options for embedding. You have iframe, hyperlink, lightbox, HTML, CSS, and website builders. Nothing beats JavaScript because it's responsive. So as people adjust the window that they're in, it will adjust the size of the form for you automatically, which is what you want. So all you do is you take a copy of this code, embed it on your website. If you're using a page builder, you put a code block, enter the JavaScript in the code block, publish it, and you're good to go. Alrighty. Oh, and another thing is when you adjust the builder or when you change the form, you don't have to change the JavaScript snippet every single time. So that's nice as well. You set it, forget it, and you're good to go. All right. So another really neat capability of Zoho Forms is the ability to track marketing information. So every time you have a call to action in marketing, you add what's called UTM parameters to the end of a URL. And those UTM parameters are your way of keeping track of what's working in marketing. If you're not familiar with UTM parameters, you can check out most of my other master classes. I go in depth. I also go in depth in this video earlier on in the video. So if you skipped ahead, you can go back to the initial demonstration and I do a little explanation of UTM parameters. But the idea is a Zoho form, once submitted, you can train your website via this tracking code that on a submission of a form, this code will teach Zoho Forms from your website to read the URL and grab the UTM parameters and pass it into Zoho. That way you can do advanced tracking within Zoho. This is really, really helpful for marketing. An absolute must-have for marketing if you're wanting to take marketing seriously. So you can choose the different UTM parameters, gclid. You can see I've got gclid here as a parameter as well. And you can track all that information. So finally, once you collect the information, you're grabbing UTM parameters, all of this information, you've got the form looking the way that you want. And the last thing you can do is integrate with your various systems. So if you're trying to get information in Zoho CRM, let's say it's a contact us form, or for me, I have the Z training form still integrates with Zoho CRM. I actually use Zoho Flow for the Z training form specifically, but you can also use the in-app integration tool to integrate with the various applications that you are using. You can see these are all the applications that you are able to integrate a form with. So that's what you'll do at the end. First, you'll make sure you build the form correctly. Second, you'll make sure that it looks the way that you need, that you're grabbing all additional information, including UTM parameters that you have embedded on your site. And then finally, from the integration section, you'll make sure that the information collected on the form ends up in the application that you want. Finally, one last thing to show you here is you can design the form with these different pre-built themes if you would like to. I think all of these are quite ugly and I would never use any of these, but maybe for you, you look at these and you're like, hey, this is really nice. I don't know what Drew's talking about. And you can totally use those. It's nice that they're pre-built. I like to do I like my forms to look pretty simple. And the nice thing about this form customization section is you can make this form look however you want with the advanced customization feature here. So you can also restore the theme defaults at any point if you're in over your head with design. But if you want to take a whack at making this look exactly the way that you want, you have the advanced customization section here in Zoho Forms. So with that, that's a overview of Zoho Forms and all the things that you need to know in order to use it correctly.